So welcome back. Today I'm going to show you some tips, some tricks, and some upgrades that I've made to my Rad Rover e-bike. So the first thing is I have a flat tire yet again. So that brings me to my first tip, and that's building a jack stand so that when you flip over your bike to work on it, you're not going to mess up your components up here. So you can see these are kind of angled a little bit. I've got these little grooves cut in so that it rests right on the grips, not on the throttle. So that I even have an arrow pointing forward so I don't make a mistake. And when I flip the bike over, it'll rest right on here, save my components. Let me demonstrate that for you. There we go. I forgot to put down a rag for the seat. My next tip that I have for you is to keep the battery on the bike. Don't take it off to charge it. I've always taken it off to charge it. So I've taken it off maybe 200 times. I've had the bike 15 months, put about 4,100 miles on it. So I've charged it maybe over 200 times. And every time I take it on and off, and I ride in the dirt and the mud sometimes, and you get mud splashed up on here. So when you take this off, little bit of dirt falls down into the connector down here, and it's like a cup. It doesn't fall through. All the dirt that falls down into the connector just collects in there. And at first I wasn't aware that this was happening. And after I had the bike for a couple of months, I noticed there was some dirt down in there, and I took a toothpick, scraped it, and I took a can of air. And then from then on, I kept an eye on it, and I'd always blow it out. But I like to charge my battery in the house, which was a mistake. So after I had the bike for about 15 months, this connector down here totally melted, fried, and the connector in here totally melted and fried. So just over time, the little bit of dirt building up on the connector, you have 15 amps of current going through there. Eventually, it started to arc and melted the connector. So this was my fix. Right here, I had to have a way of making the connection now for my battery to the controller. So after I took the battery apart, there's a little bit of an air pocket right here that I could fit this cord in here. And I cut the cable to this connector here and soldered on the opposite connector of this. And that's how I was able to continue using my battery. But I would keep your battery on the bike when you charge it. You don't want to be taking this on and off, on and off, on and off. Dirt will collect there. I mean, I ride in the mud, I admit it. But even just riding it in the morning dew and getting a little bit of dirt on here, it's going to fall down into that cup. And eventually you will fry the battery. And these are $550. And they don't include the rack. So keep an eye on that. So I get so many flat tires. Today I'm going to install these Tuffy flat tire protectors. It says ride flat free, but if I can just even cut down on the amount of flats I get, I'll be happy. I was getting so many flat tires, I buy my rubber cement in bulk. So I just counted my flats, how many repairs I've had on the 4 tubes that I use. I have 25 flats in 4,100 miles. That's about 160 miles I get in between flat tires. And I probably ride 15, 16 miles a ride. That's about normal. So every 10th ride I get a flat tire. And I'm just sick of it. So we'll see if these Tuffy liners do any good. I'm also curious if anybody out there has converted their fat bike over to tubeless, and what's the process, and if that's cut down on your flat tires. I'd be curious about that. I've made two big upgrades to the Rad Rover. One is I replaced the brakes with mechanical hydraulic brakes. You can see that here with these X-Tech brakes. So they're mechanical hydraulic, meaning that still you have a cable running down to the brake, but here at the brake it's all hydraulic and it's all sealed with the oil in it. If you want to replace the whole brake system with 100% hydraulic, you won't have the cutoff switch, the little micro switch that's in the lever here. And that's a pretty important thing to have. So a compromise is these mechanical hydraulic brakes. And I use the X-Tech one, and they're available on Amazon, of course, but you can get them a little bit cheaper if you get them on eBay and you order them from China. They're made in China anyway, so if you wait a couple weeks, you can get them a little bit cheaper that way. The best upgrade I've done to the bike so far is replace the battery pack with a 20 amp hour battery. The Rad Rover battery is a 14 amp hour, and even before I had the problem with the connector melting down, I've noticed that the battery life is starting to wane on the thing, and I'm not quite getting the same amount of miles on it. And I probably only have a little over 200 charges on it. I have 4,100 miles, maybe 250 charges on it, and it's starting to fade. So if you can do some soldering, when you buy a replacement battery, a generic replacement battery, you're just going to have wires, a connector with just bare wires, and you're going to have to splice that into your e-bike yourself. And you're going to want to have those connections soldered. You're not going to want to twist them and put some tape on them or something like that. You want to make sure they have good connection. So this battery, I got it on eBay. I got this on Amazon for $350 plus tax. They're a little bit cheaper on eBay if you get them from a Chinese supplier. They're all made in China anyways, so if you can wait, you can get them cheaper from China. But if you have a problem with it and you want to return it, you might, I don't know, I've never had to do that. Everything I buy from China, I just buy cheap little components. If I need grips or something like that, if they come in there in the wrong one, you just throw them away because they're so cheap anyways. I don't try to return it. So I bought this from an American supplier, although it is made in China. But I'm really happy with this battery. I went out the other day and just rode hard as I could, going almost as fast, going over 20 miles an hour the whole way. And I can get 35 miles out of this battery, just flying. So I'm really happy with this battery. I also wanted to mention that Bolton Bikes has a 20 amp upgrade for the Rad Rover that is plug and play compatible. You won't have to do any soldering. You just slide it in, put the Velcro straps on, and it just plugs in to your controller. It has the exact same connector on it, and you don't have to do any soldering. And he sells that for $525. It's not a bad deal at all. Good luck, and I hope to see you out on the trails.